I am Quincy Troupe, author of 18 books. I have 9 volumes of poetry. The most recent one is Renaissance, published in February of 2012. I wrote the autobiography of Miles Davis, Miles the Autobiography with Miles Davis. That was published in 1989. And I also wrote Miles and Me, a memoir of Miles Davis, that was published in 2002. I'm also the author of The Pursuit of Happiness, autobiography with Chris Gardner that I wrote with him, and that was 40 weeks on the bestseller list of the New York Times, 25 weeks #1 on the New York Times bestseller hardcover list. And that book was made into a major motion picture with Will Smith and his son, Jada. I was a professor for 34 years. I was at one time the manager of Umaxxi, the great South African musician, for about 2.5, 3 years, and Arthur Blythe. At one time I was a basketball player, really good basketball player. I was on the All-Army basketball team and played on the French team. I'm married to Margaret Porter Troupe, who's a wonderful woman. We've been together for 35 years. We have one son, his name is Porter, who's 28, and he's a professional basketball player in Romania. I have 3 other children by 2 other women, and I have 11 grandchildren. So I've lived a pretty, productive life. I'm now 72 years old. Born in July 22nd, 1939. I've also been the editor of many, many magazines. I was trained as a journalist at one time, and I started with a magazine called Confrontation, a journal of third world literature at the University, at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. And then I came to New York and edited the American Rag with the Frederick Douglass Creative Arts Center. We did 3 cop issues of that. When I moved to California, I was always interested in magazines. Jonathan Blount, who's one of the founding editors of Essence magazine, and I started a magazine we called Duende that was funded by Time Warner, which was going to be a monthly magazine, kind of a magazine for men, people of color, kind of progressive magazine, a monthly. But we didn't do that. We didn't finish that because of the fact that that's a long story. But we developed a beautiful prototype, and that taught me about monthlies. When I use the term people of color, just to play off of it, I'm specifically talking about African Americans, Latinos, Asians, Indians, Native American Indians, and I add white people to it too, because I wanted them to be in the mix, because we are in the world mix. And Larry Flint asked me to edit a magazine that he was thinking about called Code. We named it Code, and it was going to be a monthly magazine for men of color, and it was going to be a style, fashion, a cross between Esquire and GQ, and I helped develop that magazine with this woman who started, Marie Claire. I was the editorial director and editor-in-chief of that magazine. And I decided when we started that magazine that I didn't want to have any black men on the cover grinning and smiling on that cover. So I did 12, 13 of those issues, and then I stopped. And in the meantime, we won in that first year and a half about 5 of the great magazine awards from journalism. So we won, top new magazine. When I moved back to New York, Monte Diawara and Walter Mosley and Clyde Taylor, who had wrote for me for Code magazine, asked me would I edit the magazine that was coming out of New York University, the Institute of African American Affairs, Black Renaissance Noire. It's a quarterly. But I immediately wanted to change the magazine because I thought it didn't have enough art in it. I didn't think it was well laid out. It didn't have enough color. It didn't pop. The magazine didn't pop. And I set about trying to change that ran into a problem with the design guy, with the design person, so we had to get rid of him. I had to fire him, you know what I mean? Because of the fact he didn't want to do what I wanted him to do, so he had to go. You know what I mean? Because I wanted somebody who's going to like implement my vision. That magazine is still publishing today, and it's really a beautiful magazine. I've published many great writers, artists, photographers, articles, scholars, poets, Nobel laureates like Derek Walcott. We're going to have in the next issue Toni Morrison, an interview with Toni Morrison, who's also won the Nobel Prize. So we have great writers and poets in this magazine. I enjoy being an editor, and because it gives me a way to express myself outside of poetry, writing prose, and being a creative writer. My first favorite journalists at one point were sports journalists, because they could talk about basketball and football and make it pop like poetry. They could make it pop. When Michael Jordan went up to shoot a jump shot, or Magic Johnson came down on a fast break, or Gale Sayers broke away for one of them great runs, or whoever was running, or a quarterback, or Peyton Manning made a pass, they could talk about it poetically. You know, they could make the whole thing, make the whole paragraph jump. You know, so I realized early on that it's in the writing and the approach, and it's a holistic approach to it. How do you put the design with the words? How do you put the design with the graphics? You know, how do you integrate all of that? How do you make it work? Can you put a piece of art there that make it work? You know, how do you do that? So that's always been my approach. So content is very important, but you have to make the content expressive in a way. I mean, if you write, you can get a great academic essay, and it's really good. But if you got 20 pages of just, a academic essay, maybe somebody's gonna get tired and start to nod, you know? So you want it to pop. You gotta be able to make it work, you know? I try to pick people who are academics who can know how to write with that kind of flair. Langston Hughes in Russia. We're publishing the next issue, coming out in October of this year, 2012. You know, Langston Hughes in Russia with Lauren Miller, you see, who was a judge, a African-American judge from Los Angeles, you see, and being in Russia. So I think that Langston Hughes, was one of my models. He was one of my models, although, he was one of my models when I was going to be a writer. You know, write journalism, write poetry, write memoir, write children's books, do jazz, do music with jazz. I mean, for me, that was incredible. He's working with jazz, Duke Ellington them. That's why I work with jazz musicians now. You know what I mean? Because of Langston Hughes. So Langston was a very important artist for me. I never met him. I just never met him. Just like Amiri Baraka was a very important artist for me. I mean, poet. Because of the fact, whatever notwithstanding some people, about his views, we're not talking about his views. I'm talking about him as an artist. I'm talking about him as an editor. Langston Hughes was an editor. Baraka was an editor. He worked with musicians. He wrote essays, he wrote novels, fiction, you know what I mean? He wrote all kinds of stuff. And so for me, Langston Hughes was one of the people I looked up to, although I didn't know him. I didn't know him. I think that you can wear all different kinds of hats. And I think that African American artists at this point in time have to wear many hats. My wife and I live in Harlem. Margaret and myself and a lot of people up here, Danny Glover, Margaret and the Tennis Association here, Marcella Lowry, a whole bunch of really great people up here, helped save this building and the surrounding area. You know what I mean? We ran people out of here. We almost, we put our lives on the line, with coke dealers and everybody else. And saved this neighborhood. Across the street and everybody right around here. This was the hub of the community. Ran all the junkies out and everything. And now it's an oasis and white people are moving here, and that's cool, I don't mind that. But do you think the New York Times would come up here and write a story about us? A positive story? About these are the people that saved Graham Court. And people have told them. They have never, none of these newspapers, they won't write nothing about it. that we did, especially led by my wife and the tennis association in this building. You know, I mean, they will never do that. They have to always find the negative. They find the negative. This guy smacked this woman, beat up threw the child out the window. The guy shot this person. It's a lot of really success stories. And as a journalist, I know that. I know that. The way we get the news, like for example, we got a new poet laureate today, you know, and Natasha Trethewey. I like her a lot. She's a good poet. But she's picked by, she was picked by James Billington, I think his name is Billington, who is a Librarian of Congress, and Dana Gioia. Dana Gioia is a Republican and not a very good poet. You know what I mean? He was over the National Endowment, but it was James Billington who picked her. You know what I mean? Who's a conservative, nice man. The alternative is magazines like the Black Renaissance. It's Black Renaissance. I'm not going to even say the Amsterdam News. You know, I'm going to say magazines like Black Renaissance. I don't know too many others. You know, I think the internet. If you want to look on the internet, for example, on the internet, I found this. I didn't find it no place else. It was in they write things like this: is a Basquiat painting really worth $16 million? Okay, why would they say that? You mean Basquiat's paintings are not worth what Andy Warhol's soup cans are? I don't think Andy Warhol can hold a torch to Jean-Michel Basquiat as an artist. Not as an artist, not as a painter, not as a visual artist. Now, he did some nice things. I'm not going to say he didn't. He's not on the same level as Basquiat. Nobody talks about him when he gets $15 million for a soup can or Marilyn Monroe, whatever he does. I think a couple of situations, themes are here. I think white people wanted to be post-racial, and I think a lot of young African Americans wanted to be post-racial. And I can also add Asians in that and Latinos in it. They want to be post-racial. They want to be over that time. They don't want to go back to the 60s or none of that stuff. I understand that. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Post-racial is going to be years off. Art for me is a very wide category. And I talk about, for me, it's like visual arts, poetic arts, musical art, dance, theater, movies, should be, etc. And but then I think that the same problem exists there also. You know, I think whose art are we talking about here? And are we talking about what makes great art? I mean, we all have different ideas about that. What makes great art? I mean, I live with art every day. You know, I live with it every day, and I'm really happy to live with it. It makes my life better. So, but I disagree that a cow in formaldehyde in a sealed thing is art for me. I mean, I just don't, and people are gonna buy it for $40 million. I mean, okay, if you want to, but I don't see where a dead cow in formaldehyde has anything to do. I wouldn't have it in my house. If he gave it to me, I wouldn't have it in my house. I see some art that some of these people have, you know. I mean, the whole thing about toilet stew, nailed to something. Okay, I mean, if you want to think that's art, cool. You know, but I like, you know, I go on the subway, I see things, you know, certain kinds of modes of expression. They don't move me at all. I know they move other people. The same thing is true with poetry. The great majority of people live in the United States live in cities. We live in cities. I'm not gonna say that's the best way to live, but that's what it is. What kind of art comes out of that? Jean-Michel Basquiat, you know, comes out of that. You know, I can just go down the list of people. Jasper John comes out of that. You know, I can just go down the list of people who come out of urban places. You know, Jackson Pollock comes out of that. You know, Melvin Edwards comes out of that. Ed Clark. Keith Haring is okay, but Basquiat was like smacking it down, brother. Now, it was unfortunate he died early and he went out, but look, he got a body of work, and what a lot of people are mad about is that his father controls it. They can't get to that. His father, Haitian, controls that art. They got to go through him to get it. They're pissed off about that so bad. Yeah, they are. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like, so art is in the eyes of the beholder. It's subjective. I have my own views of it, and I'm sure people at the Museum of Modern Art have the curators, and that's cool. I don't mind that, but I think it should be inclusive. You cannot talk about art in a multiracial country, in a multi-ethnic country, multi-religious country, if you don't include everybody. I relish what I do. I really enjoy what I do, you know, and I do it because of the fact that I think I'm good at it. I ain't bragging, but I think I'm good at it. I think I'm good at putting all of these different things together, you know, and making this magazine what it is, you know.